Looking back at my marriage now, it feels almost comical how easily I allowed my entire life to be erased. On paper, everything looked like a success story. I had a spacious 4-bedroom house, a husband with a respectable corporate job, and a mother-in-law who was revered as a pillar of her local church. Neighbors constantly stopped me in the grocery store aisle to tell me how fortunate I was to marry into such a wonderful family. I would smile politely, agreeing with them every single time. The truth was that I had become exceptionally skilled at wearing a fake smile. My ex-husband proposed to me on a cold Tuesday evening in a crowded restaurant parking lot. There was no grand romantic gesture, no champagne, and no deep declaration of love. He simply asked if we should get married as if he were asking someone to pass the salt across the table. I was 28 years old, running a successful department at a downtown marketing agency, and living in my own sunlit apartment. I had solid savings, great friends, and complete independence. Yet within 18 months of saying yes to that uninspired proposal, every single piece of my personal life had vanished into thin air. It did not happen in one sudden tragedy, because control rarely works that way. It started with subtle suggestions from my mother-in-law, who convinced my husband that we should move into her large suburban home to save money. My husband thought it was a brilliant idea, so I reluctantly agreed, convincing myself it was only temporary. 3 years later, I was still sleeping in her guest room. Soon after, I was pressured into quitting my career because someone needed to stay home, manage the household chores, and coordinate schedules. When I handed in my resignation, I cried quietly in my car before going inside to cook dinner. I want to be honest about those 3 years. Because people often wonder why women in my situation do not simply pack up and leave. The truth is that over time, you completely forget you have the right to make your own choices. I forgot what my natural voice sounded like when I was not apologizing or shrinking myself to keep the peace. My mother-in-law ran the household like a strict military base, refolding towels behind my back with a look of silent pity. Meanwhile, my husband was physically present but emotionally completely absent, walking through our home like a phantom who had checked out long ago, about a year before everything imploded. I began noticing faint red flags that I desperately tried to ignore. My husband started staying unusually late at the office and holding his phone at strange, secretive angles whenever I walked into the room. Then, on a random evening in March, his phone screen lit up on the nightstand while he was taking a shower. I was not intentionally snooping, but the notification was impossible to miss. It was a flirty message from a woman named Chloe. I stood frozen in the dark bedroom, feeling a sudden, chilling sense of total clarity rather than total heartbreak. I knew I could not react recklessly because financial dependency turns exit plans into complex logistical nightmares. I had no current income, my name was omitted from the house title, and I had barely $500 saved in a private account from grocery change. Instead of starting in screaming match, I picked up the phone and reached out to my oldest friend, Sarah. I parked 2 blocks away from the house with the heater running and confessed every single detail to her. Sarah did not judge me or say I told you so. She simply asked what steps we needed to take next. Over the next 6 weeks, Sarah helped me secretly rebuild my life from the ground up. She helped me update my resume, store my critical personal documents at her house, and open a brand new individual bank account. I discreetly applied for corporate positions while my husband grew bolder, routinely disappearing on weekends and buying expensive new clothes under the guise of work trips. My mother-in-law praised his newfound energy, entirely oblivious to his betrayal. I remained silent, cleared the dinner plates every night, and patiently waited for my moment to strike. The disrespect escalated to an unbelievable level when my husband sat across from me at the kitchen table and calmly made an announcement. He claimed a female corporate colleague named Chloe needed a temporary place to stay due to sudden renovations at her apartment complex. He asked if she could move into our extra bedroom for a few weeks, bracing himself for an argument. I looked at him calmly and agreed without a fight, which completely threw him off. When Chloe arrived that Saturday carrying designer luggage and wearing a smug expression, my mother-in-law welcomed her with open arms. The following week was a masterclass in psychological humiliation. Chloe and my husband exchanged playful looks across the dinner table while my mother-in-law openly praised Chloe's taste and career ambitions. They treated me like an unpaid housekeeper in my own home, subtly mocking my clothes and cooking. What none of them realized was that 2 days prior, I had officially accepted a high-paying marketing manager role across town. Sarah and I had already secured a private apartment, and a brilliant divorce attorney named Eleanor was quietly prepping my legal paperwork behind the scenes. Around that time, another unexpected element entered the picture through my friend Sarah. Her cousin, Caleb, was visiting from out of state and staying at her home while looking for local real estate. When I stopped by Sarah's place to organize my legal files, Caleb was in the kitchen, and we ended up talking for nearly 2 hours over coffee. He listened to me with genuine respect and made me feel like an actual human being again. We exchanged numbers and kept in touch through light text messages, providing a refreshing reminder of what healthy, normal human interaction felt like. 2 weeks into Chloe's stay, my mother-in-law decided to host an elaborate dinner party to introduce Chloe to several prominent neighbors. I agreed to attend because I knew this gathering would provide the perfect backdrop for my final exit. I quietly texted Caleb, giving him the address and asking him to arrive at the house around 7:30 with a bottle of wine. At 7:25, as my husband poured Chloe another glass of expensive red wine while ignoring me, my phone buzzed in my lap. I cleared my throat, announced that I had invited a guest to join us, and walked to the front door. I opened the door, greeted Caleb, and walked him directly into the formal dining room. The moment Chloe raised her eyes to see who had walked through the doorway, the color instantly drained from her face. She looked utterly horrified, as if she were staring at a ghost. Caleb stopped dead in his tracks, his calm composure instantly shifting as he looked at her in total disbelief. Before anyone else could speak, Caleb looked Chloe directly in the eyes and asked her what on earth she was doing sitting in this house. The entire dining room fell into a dead, suffocating silence as the shocking truth quickly unraveled right before our eyes. It turned out that Caleb and Chloe had been married until their messy divorce was finalized just 4 months prior. Chloe had abruptly walked out on Caleb after claiming she needed space, leaving him completely blind to her secretive affairs. My husband sat frozen in his chair, staring blankly as his complex web of lies dissolved into pure embarrassment. My mother-in-law stared at Chloe with absolute disgust, realizing her precious guest was nothing more than a serial deceiver. Without offering a coherent explanation, Chloe grabbed her purse, stammered about needing fresh air, and practically ran out the front door into the night. My husband called her name once, but he did not even bother to stand up or chase after her. The neighbors awkwardly excused themselves within minutes, clearly eager to spread the unbelievable gossip across the entire neighborhood. While my mother-in-law began clearing dishes in dead silence, I walked upstairs, grabbed my pre-packed suitcase, and walked back down the staircase to end this chapter forever. My husband stood in the foyer, staring at my luggage with a mixture of confusion and sudden panic. He asked where I was going and suggested we sit down to talk things through like adults. I looked him dead in the eye and told him we should have talked years ago, adding that my attorney Eleanor would be in contact with him by Monday morning. I looked at my mother-in-law standing silently in the hallway, said a polite goodnight, and walked out the door without a single hint of regret. Caleb was waiting in the driveway, and he offered to drive me directly to Sarah's house, where I broke down in tears of pure relief. Over the next few months, Eleanor handled the divorce proceedings with brutal efficiency, leaving my ex-husband to deal with the embarrassing aftermath of his own choices. Today, I live in a beautiful apartment, excel in my high-level corporate career, and no longer shrink myself for anyone. If you are currently feeling trapped in a situation where you feel invisible, remember that building your own independent foundation is the most powerful thing you will ever do.